Yes, greetings to all of the family out there. David Roots, Living Roots from David Roots TV. These are the 5 reasons why you will hate going to Africa. I just returned from Lagos, Nigeria. My wife says I always pronounce that wrong. Lagos, Nigeria. I've been to Africa many times. I've been to Tanzania. I've been to Ethiopia twice. I've been to Ghana. I've been to Egypt. And I want to return as many times as I can and hopefully move there at some point. And so this is a bit of a clickbait, wasn't it? These are the reasons you will hate going to Africa, because when you return, this is how you're going to feel. The number one reason that you will hate returning when you come from Africa is the lack of culture upon your return. Going to Africa makes you realize how much people in the West, in particular if you are a person of African descent, does not have any or has a very minimal hold on cultural richness. Okay, so when you go to Africa, you return to your roots, you will see a people that's so much in touch with their culture, and the diversity of culture is huge. I mean, just looking at Nigeria alone, which is really a false dichotomy, isn't it? Because what we call Nigeria is made up of the colonial empire that was left behind by the British. Just in Nigeria alone, you have so many different states with so many different kingdoms, what some people may call tribes. You know, you have the Yoruba tribe, you have just Hausa. Those are just the main ones. There are many that, you know, we don't even really know about in the West, and that's just in Nigeria. Okay, the culture. So when we talk about the culture, we're talking about the languages. Everyone speaks different languages. I was learning a lot of Yoruba while I was down there because my wife's family are Yoruba, so I got to learn a lot of Yoruba. We're talking about the dress, the way that people dress. You know, I'm wearing some of my African-inspired clothes at this time, but for us here in the West, you know, we put on clothes as a way to reconnect, whereas for them, that's just part of the daily wear. Even when they're going to work, I know here in the UK, I was talking to some of my people. I work in a school, and I was saying, you know, I want to wear some more African-inspired clothes, and they said, oh, well, as long as it has a tie. You know, this is the ridiculousness of what we're dealing with. Hence why, of course, we want to work for ourselves so we can wear whatever we want. So we're talking about that culture, that language, the clothes, okay, the traditions. So much of the traditions that we find there in, for example, in the Caribbean. I'm from Bermuda originally, that's where I was born, but so much of that language, of the traditions that we see in the Caribbean, when you go to Africa, you see that actually the similarities and commonalities, yeah, the things that we share in common, okay, and that they reveal their African roots. So that's the first thing, that why you will hate going to Africa is because when you return, okay, you're going to have to leave behind that rich diversity. And when you come over here, as soon as you get off of that plane, okay, you go back to New York, or in my case to London, you know, these cities that everyone wants to visit. That's one of the things that immediately hits you. You're like, man, look around you. Everyone's just homogenous. Everyone has just got the same, wearing all this Western garb. You know, everyone speaks English. There's no vibe. There's no cultural, no deep traditions. You know, and the ones that there are, Christmas and Halloween and Thanksgiving and all of these other things, are very, you know, very basic. They don't really have no depth to it. Okay, I don't celebrate those things anyway, but that's one of the things. It's hard to really, unless people that have been to the continent, to Africa, and of course this applies to other places, but I'm talking in this case about Africa, they will understand. Please drop a comment below if you understand what I'm talking about, how deep and how rich the culture is and how embedded it is. I mean, people even wear scarification on their cheeks to let people know, identify where they come from. That's how deep it is. The names, and they don't take surnames the same way we do. We do in the West. They don't take those sort of surnames, so you need to be able to identify with your culture in real, concrete ways. All right. So that's my number one on the list of why you will hate going to Africa, and particularly if you are a person of African descent. All right. When you get back, you will feel like you really are missing out. Okay, number two on my list, the climate. I mean, right now where I am at the time of filming this video, it's April. Luckily, it's a sunny day. I can come out here and shoot this video. But where I live in London, these days are not all that common. The summers ain't too bad, to be honest, here. Okay, but the majority of the time, it's cold, it's rainy. I mean, the cold is one thing. If it was sunny, it'd be fine. But it's cold, it's rainy. The climate is just dreary and gray, quite depressing. And medically, okay, this isn't just how you feel, but medically, scientists have shown that people can suffer from what they call SAD, which is seasonal affective disorder. Okay, and so because there's not enough sun, that actually affects your mood. It affects your melatonin and serotonin levels. And it can make you ill, obviously, because you can get a lack of vitamin D as well, so it can make you physically ill. The climate wreaks havoc for me. I don't know about others. Wreaks havoc on my skin, my hair, because it's so dry and cold over here. Okay, but when you go to Africa now, okay, particularly, well, all of Africa generally is tropical, except for when you go to some parts of South Africa. But even there, from what I've been told, the climate is beautiful. It's ideal. You have the mountains and everything, but it's just the sun is so hot. I've been to Egypt, as I said. I've been to Ghana. I've been to Nigeria. I've been to Tanzania. The sun is perfect for what you need, in particular if you are a person of African descent, meaning you have that melanated skin, and your skin requires that sun to keep it healthy. Okay, your bones require that sun so that your body can make vitamin D to keep it healthy. Your hair requires that sun and that humidity to lock in that moisture. Why do you think sales of cocoa butter are so high in our communities in Europe and in Americas? Why? Because our skin dries out from all of that cold. But the climate in Africa is beautiful. Now, if you live there all the time, it can be too hot. So a lot of the African people, especially in Nigeria, for example, they tend to do what people do, for example, in South America and in Central America, where in Spain, they really don't do much activity until around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They come out early morning, do what you have to do, then everyone goes inside in the air conditioner underneath the shade until the evening time. And then once evening time hits, that's when everybody comes out. All the street sellers come out to sell food and all of those things. So they have acclimatized to the way that the sun is and the temperatures are. But so we take it for granted. And like I go down and I want to be out in the sun. A lot of my friends were like, why would you want to be out in the sun? It's too hot. They want to hide from the sun. But because I don't get enough of it where I am at this time, then I go out in it. And that's the beauty of it, that the climate is just ideal. And that's when you get back off of that plane, okay, and you come over here and you're scrounging and scavenging for as much sun as you can, then it makes you really hate the fact that you went and that you have to come back. Okay, Africa is beautiful in terms of the climate. You have the water, You know, I'm not saying Africa is perfect, because you're gonna have a lot of people writing down in the comments, oh, Africa's this and this and that. And I don't like to use Africa as a monolith. Okay, it's not just one place. I understand that, but I'm using that as a reference point. It's not perfect. Of course it's not perfect. Even the climate, you know, as we said, it can be too hot sometimes. However, I'd rather have the sun than not have the sun. Okay, you've got the rain. When I was down there in Lagos, it rained. You have the excellent balance of that climate year round. And that is something that we miss a lot once we get back. And your skin, as people say, when I got back off the plane, they say, oh, I can tell you've got that glow. I was only there for a week, and you already get that glow. So you can get your true color, okay, your true color. So that's my number 2 on the list. Number 3, looking at my list, that things that's gonna make you hate going to Africa. And then when you return, the number 3 is the people. Okay, the people. Listen, let's make no bones about it. I am a man of color. I'm a man of African descent. Okay, and so my reality is different than someone who is not from my so-called ethnic base. Okay, when I go to Heathrow Airport, for example, Terminal 5, the largest airport in the world, because it has Terminal 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you hardly see anybody that looks like me. That's the reality. Out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are there, the majority, you are in the minority. I am in the minority. There's nothing racist about it. That's just a fact. Even in terms of the workers, you are in the minority. Okay? And that's how it is in London in general, unless you're in certain areas. But when you go now to Africa, in particular if you go to West Africa, if you go to East Africa, it's a little bit different. Obviously, if you go to Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, places like that. Look, the sun's going down already. Look at the clouds coming out. It's a little bit different, of course, if you go to those places, but in general, you are surrounded by people that look like you. And with that comes a level of familyhood. People greet you as if you're family. Even though, for example, me, you can see I have, from my ancestry, I have obvious mixing of ethnic groups in my family. I got my sort of straightish hair at the top, which can be curly at times as well. But that doesn't matter. They treat you as brothers and sisters, and they're so welcoming. So welcoming. And not because they want things from you. Anywhere you go, you're going to have people that want things from you, especially people who may be on a lower income bracket. But the people, when you are, from all of my experiences, whether it was in Ethiopia, Tanzania, Ghana, and in particular Nigeria, they were so welcoming to have you. Now, obviously, people have different personalities. Some of the shops I went in, some of the people that worked in the shops, they could be a bit, what's the word, cold. I got the same thing when you go to Jamaica. Okay, but in general, putting people's personalities aside, people are very welcoming to you, and they treat you as if you are family, and they want you to stay. They want you to return, and they want you to visit there to be the best it can be. And they'll do anything for you. And obviously they appreciate if you can give them something. Why wouldn't you? You know, £5 to me, or $10 to someone in America goes a long way to someone over there. So why wouldn't you want to give, even if it's just a small thing? So that's my number 3 on the list. It's the people. Okay, the people makes you want to go back. Number 4 on my list is the opportunity and potential when you are there. Listen, I live in one of the greatest cities in the world, they say, London. Okay, London's huge. It's not just one city. You should feel like when I first moved to London, I was excited because I thought this is like one of the greatest cities in the world. This has got the city of London, where it's the financial capital of the world. There should be so much opportunity for me to do big things over here. I'm an author, you know, I'm a creative person. It's not the case. It's not the case. And you don't get that feeling either of the place rooting for you. Whereas when you go to Africa now, people want to do business with you. People want to put you on. People want to work with you because they know that if they can improve you, they can improve themselves. And as I said, that family aspect is there as well. Okay, they see you as a brother or sister, and you just see so many people that look like you, that have access to the different things that you may need access to, and you have things that they may need access to. So the opportunities and the potential is off the chain. And I know there's a growing movement at the time of this video of people in the Americas, for example, black people in the Americas, who want to move away from that African consciousness and that African centeredness and align more with the being a black American. And that's okay. I understand where they're coming from, that you and your ancestors built up that nation, so why shouldn't you lay claim to it? I understand that. But at the same time, when we can acknowledge the opportunities in regards to the human resources and the material resources on the continent, the synergy between the two is amazing to think of the potential that's there. Okay? As you know, is often attributed to Marcus Garvey. I'm not sure if he actually said it, but why would you give up an island for a continent? Why would you give up so much of that cultural richness, resource richness, for somewhere like America, where you are in the minority and where it is very difficult to get opportunity? Now, America is a bit better, the USA, than, for example, in England. This is definitely a place where getting on the ladder, forget getting to the top of the ladder, is very difficult, because it's all about who you know, who you are, and what you look like. That's the reality. And those things disappear when it comes to being in Africa. It's still obviously about your connections. That's right. You know, I'm not going to be naive. It's about who you know, and there is a lot of corruption in Africa, in particular in some of the countries. We know this. But even with all of that, the opportunities that exist and the potential, that way you feel when you're down there. Look, I got my hand on my chest. The way you feel when you're down there is like the world is your oyster. Okay? So that was my number 4 on my list of why you will hate going to Africa, because when you return, you're going to realize that you're missing those things. Your heart is going to be heavy, and you're going to look for every opportunity to try to make moves down there as possible. And number 5, last one, of course, drum roll please, we all know what this is the food. The food on the continent. And when we're saying it's a continent, so that means the food is so diverse. Let's just start with the fruits alone. There are fruits down there that you don't even have a clue of, because they're not Western fruits. Of course, you got your oranges, your apples. You know, you have pineapple, which is completely different than any pineapple you're getting over here. Especially that West African pineapple, which has got a green skin, but is ripe on the inside. Mango. Yes, it's seasonal, but there are places that have it during different seasons from where you are, so you still can have mango. Okay? But all the other fruits that are not even, you know, these are like traditional fruits, to call it that, and indigenous fruits. Then just the style of cooking. you know, we're used to cereal and all of this processed food and boxes and all of that sort of thing. And you know, yes, you can go to your restaurants, and yes, you can do your own cooking and all of that when you're in Europe or in the Americas. But the reality is, we know, don't deny it, don't act like it's, you know, a big thing. Most people in the Americas are eating fast food. They're eating out of the refrigerator. Most people in Europe are doing the same exact thing. But when you go now to Africa, listen, when I went to Nigeria, as I was explaining to some of my friends there, they didn't understand that one of my friends didn't even know what canned tuna was. You know, I was explaining to him about, you know, sometimes I just want to get a tuna sandwich or stuff like that. And he was like, tuna, okay, what is this? And we went to the grocery store, supermarket, and showed him the tuna, and he was wondering, okay, what do you do with this? Do you microwave it? Or, you know, some people might laugh at that, but they're used to eating cooked food. They eat real food all the time. And to be honest, a lot of the evenings, especially during that time, it was Ramadan, a lot of the evenings they're eating very lightly, because the food that they're eating during the day is very heavy. For breakfast, the breakfast I was eating was like what people would eat for dinner. Stewed fish, boiled yam, boiled sweet potato, real food. I didn't have to eat no cereal and no oat milk, you know, and all of this sort of process this and process that. It's real food that's available to you. Okay? And the thing about Africa, as I said, it's not a monolith. There are many different cultures. So the food and the way that people cook is completely different. You have the Senegambia cuisine. Then you have more of, like, you know, the other sort of West African cuisine. Like in Nigeria, they have a lot of different soups, which are more like stews, but the soups, and they eat with different grains and the hand and stuff like that. And then you have the East African cuisine. Then you have Ethiopian cuisine, which is completely different than, or very different, not completely different, but very different from the other East African cuisine. Then, of course, you have South African cuisine, which has lots of meats and, you know, lots of cattle and all that sort of stuff in their diet. Then you have the North African cuisine, which is very Mediterranean. The food is just off the chain. And not only is it off the chain as far as taste, it's nutritionally better for you. And it aligns with who you are as a person. It aligns with your DNA, because these are the types of foods that are better for us, because they come from where we came from. So that's my 5 reasons why you will hate going to Africa. Because when you return, you will miss the culture. You will miss the people. You will miss the opportunities, okay, and possibilities. You will miss the food. And I forgot the 5th one. Let's see, let me look at my little list. Oh, and you will definitely miss the climate. The climate, that sun that we need to energize us. I haven't mentioned the music. That's part of the culture. If you're a single man or a single woman, I haven't mentioned the potential for partners and the beauty of the people, the beautiful women. And of course, if you're a woman, the handsome men. I can't speak for you, but I'm sure when people go to Nigeria or wherever, different parts, no matter what type of person you're looking for, you're going to find them there. But I know the women are extremely beautiful. I haven't mentioned, you know, the business resource opportunities, like the natural resources, that whether we like it or not are being exploited and going to be more exploited in the tech industry to come. I haven't mentioned the biodiversity and the animals. There's so much more that I could mention. But I know that if you go, especially as a person of African descent, if you're coming from the Caribbean, the Americas, from Europe, and you return to the motherland, as we call it, whatever you want to call that place. Africa, Alkebulan, you know, Ethiopia, Gondwana land, Lemuria, Atlantis, whatever names people want to call it. That continent and that land is going to move you in a way that you have never been moved before. This is David Roots. Give thanks. Odabo. Odabo, as they would say in Yoruba, which is goodbye, I think. Okay, still learning my Yoruba. Put a like, please, on the video. Put your comment on your experience of Africa and why people will hate going to Africa, because when they come back, David Roots.